She was standing at the altar in a $10,000 wedding dress. 300 guests were watching. The bells had stopped ringing 20 minutes ago. And then her phone buzzed with two words that destroyed everything. Account frozen. Her fiancé did not just leave her at the altar. He stole her entire inheritance, her grandmother's house, every single penny she had ever owned. And the worst part? She was not his first victim. She was his fifth. But what Matteo did not expect was this. The broken woman he left crying on those cold marble steps would become his absolute worst nightmare. And the dangerous stranger who found her that day? He was Matteo's most powerful enemy. This is a story about a woman who lost everything and how she turned her deepest pain into unstoppable power. Remember this. The people who try to destroy you often become the reason you discover just how strong you truly are. This story is a complete work of fiction, created solely for your entertainment. All of the characters, places, and events depicted are products of the author's imagination. We do not support or endorse any illegal activities whatsoever. Sophia's fingers, trembling uncontrollably, gripped the heavy satin of her wedding dress. She stood staring at an altar that remained cruelly, insultingly empty. The grand cathedral bells had fallen silent a full 20 minutes ago, their joyful peals now just a mocking echo in the vast, quiet space. Behind her, the rustle of wedding finery was replaced by the venom of whispers. The voices of her guests grew from a gentle murmur to a rising tide of speculation and pity, each second amplifying her humiliation. Where could Matteo be? Her mind screamed the question, a frantic, repeating loop of disbelief. A kind voice tried to cut through the fog. "Miss, I am terribly sorry, but the priest—" The rest of his words dissolved into meaningless noise as Sophia's phone vibrated against her ribs. The screen glowed with a message from her banker. Two words: account frozen. Then more words, each one a hammer blow against her heart. All assets have been transferred. Legal documents were processed and finalized this morning. The warmth in her body vanished, replaced by a deep, invasive cold that felt like death. A second message popped up, this time displaying Matteo's name. The message was short. "Sorry, Amore. Business is business." A final chilling command followed. "Do not try to find me." The $10,000 wedding dress, once a symbol of her future, suddenly felt like a suffocating straitjacket, its weight crushing the very air from her lungs. Every piece of her life was gone. Her inheritance, the product of her family's hard work for generations, had vanished. Her grandmother's beautiful house, the only place that had ever felt like a true home, was no longer hers. He had taken everything. Matteo had been meticulously planning this theft for months, perhaps even for years. She finally understood the sickening truth. She was never his bride. She was simply his biggest and most profitable heist. The strength drained from Sophia's legs as if a plug had been pulled. She crumpled onto the cold, unforgiving marble steps of the altar. Her expensive dress, a cloud of white silk, pooled around her like spilled milk, a perfect image of her ruined purity. The guests let out a collective gasp, a sharp, intrusive sound, but Sophia could not hear them. She was lost in a silent world of absolute devastation. Everything she had ever believed in, every person she had ever placed her trust in, it had all been a carefully constructed lie. She was utterly alone and had nowhere to go. She had no money, no home, not a single thing left to her name. It was in that moment of complete despair that she heard a voice cut through the darkness. It was a deep voice, one that held an unmistakable note of command, yet it was delivered with an unexpected gentleness. "Miss, are you hurt?" To hear the rest of this incredible story of betrayal, the quest for justice, and the discovery of true strength, we invite you to become part of our amazing community. We are on a mission to reach 5,000 subscribers, and every single one of you helps us get closer to that goal. Your support truly means the world to us. Please take a moment to hit that subscribe button, and be sure to let us know in the comments where you are listening from tonight. Now let's return to Sophia's journey. Sophia could not stop the violent shaking that racked her entire body. She was now in the back of a black sport utility vehicle, wrapped in a stranger's heavy, expensive coat, yet the tremors continued. She felt like a leaf caught in the fury of a storm, helpless and exposed. The man who had found her on the altar steps had introduced himself simply as Oliver. He had not overwhelmed her with questions or demanded explanations. He simply acted. With a quiet strength, he had helped her to her feet, his hands steady and sure. He carefully gathered the long train of her ruined designer dress and then gently guided her out of the cathedral. His security team moved with silent efficiency, clearing a path through the gawking crowd of guests and onlookers. Once they were inside the vehicle, he asked, "Where to, miss?" His voice was nothing like Mateo's. Mateo's voice had always been smooth as silk, a charming and practiced performance that, in hindsight, should have been her very first warning sign. This man's voice was different. It had a rough edge to it, like a fine, expensive whiskey. It was a voice that held power, and it made her feel a sense of safety she could not begin to comprehend. When Sophia tried to speak, her voice came out as a broken, fragile crackle. I do not have anywhere to go." She saw his eyes meet hers in the polished rear-view mirror. They were dark, intense, and shockingly serious, but she saw no pity in them, only focus. He asked her, "What do you mean by that?" The entire story then came pouring out of her, a chaotic flood of words she was powerless to stop. She told him everything. She explained how Mateo had used expertly forged legal documents to steal her entire inheritance. She described how he had sold her grandmother's house out from under her, erasing the last tangible piece of her family's legacy from the earth. She confessed, her voice dropping to a horrified whisper, how he had systematically emptied every single one of her accounts, taking every last penny she had to her name before disappearing completely. "He planned it all so perfectly," she whispered, staring down at her trembling hands. The wedding was never supposed to happen. It was just the cover story, the ultimate distraction. While she and all her guests were waiting at the cathedral for a sacred ceremony, he was at the bank, finalizing the complete and total theft of her life. As she spoke, Oliver's knuckles turned bone white from his grip on the steering wheel. He asked her one simple, sharp question. "What is his full name?" "Matteo Castellano," she answered. "Why do you ask?" The car swerved sharply, the tires protesting against the pavement. Oliver immediately pulled the vehicle over to the side of the road and turned in his seat to face her directly. His expression was now deadly serious, his calm demeanor gone. "Castano?" he repeated, the name sounding like a curse on his lips. Sophia could only nod, completely confused by his sudden and intense reaction. "You know him?" A dark, humorless laugh escaped Oliver's lips. It was a frightening sound. "Know him? Sweetheart, Matteo Castellano has spent the last 3 years of his life trying to systematically destroy my family's business." He paused, his eyes boring into hers. "He is my biggest rival in this city, and apparently, he is an even bigger bastard than I ever could have imagined." Sophia felt her world tilt on its axis for the second time that day. "Your family's business?" she asked, trying to grasp this new reality. "Import and export," Oliver said carefully, his eyes never leaving hers. He added, "among other things." It was a lie, a clear and obvious evasion, and they both knew it instantly. Sophia may have been hopelessly naive when it came to Matteo's affections, but she was not a stupid woman. The way Oliver's men moved with practiced military precision, the way other cars seemed to instinctively clear a path for them, the sheer expense of his suit, his car, his entire being. This was not about some legitimate shipping business. "You are a dangerous man," she stated, the words quiet but firm. "Yes," he replied without hesitation. He leaned a little closer. "To men like Matteo? Absolutely." Then Oliver's intense eyes softened just slightly. "To you? Never." Sophia knew she should have been terrified, Logic dictated that she should have demanded he stop the car and let her out immediately. Instead, for the first time since that morning, she felt a tiny, fragile flicker of hope begin to glow in the darkness of her despair. If this powerful, dangerous man was Mateo's sworn enemy, then perhaps, just perhaps, he could also be her salvation. "Why are you helping me?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Oliver was quiet for a long, heavy moment, as if carefully weighing his answer. "Because nobody deserves what that man did to you," he finally said. "And because Matteo Castellano is about to receive a very painful education, he is going to learn that his actions in this world have severe consequences." He pulled the sport utility vehicle smoothly back into the flow of traffic, heading directly toward the most expensive and exclusive part of Manhattan. "I am taking you somewhere safe," he explained. "Somewhere he will never even think to look for you. And then, you and I are going to make him pay." Oliver's voice was low and steady, a promise of retribution. "We will make him pay for every single penny he stole from you, for every lie he told you, and for every tear you have cried today." Sophia stared out of the tinted windows, watching the glittering city lights blur into long, abstract streaks. Only 3 hours ago, she had been blissfully preparing to marry the man she thought she loved. Now she was a passenger in an armored car, riding with a powerful stranger who might be the only person on earth willing and able to help her reclaim her stolen life. "I do not even know your last name," she said quietly, the thought suddenly occurring to her. "Torino," he replied, his voice calm. "My name is Oliver Torino." Sophia's blood, which had just started to warm, turned to ice all over again. Even in the sheltered, privileged world she had lived in, she had heard that name. It was a name spoken in hushed whispers in very specific, very powerful circles. The Torino family was rumored to control half of New York's vast and complex underground operations. They were known to be powerful, completely ruthless, and utterly untouchable by the law. And now, it seemed, they were her only allies in the entire world. "Do not look so scared," Oliver said, his eyes catching her terrified expression in the mirror. "I meant every word I said. You are under my protection now." He let that sink in for a moment before continuing. "That means you are safer right now than you have ever been in your entire life." The sport utility vehicle turned, passing through a set of massive, ornate iron gates. They entered a private compound that looked less like a home and more like a modern fortress. There were meticulously manicured gardens, elaborate fountains, and enough visible security to protect a small country. "Welcome to your new beginning, Sophia," Oliver said, as he came around to open her door and help her out of the car. "Matteo thought he had completely destroyed you." He looked at her, his expression resolute. "He was wrong. We are going to build you back, stronger than you ever were before. And when we are finished, he is going to bitterly regret the day he ever learned your name." Sophia looked up at the magnificent mansion that towered above them, a palace of stone and glass. Then she looked at the man who had rescued her from the absolute worst day of her life. She had no idea what would happen next, what this new life would demand of her. But for the very first time since she had read that devastating text message, she was not afraid. She was ready to fight back. 3 weeks later, Sophia stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows in Oliver's private office. She watched the sunrise paint the Manhattan skyline in brilliant shades of orange and gold. The ruined wedding dress had been replaced. She now wore designer jeans and a cashmere sweater that likely cost more than what most people earned in a single month. The transformation, however, was far more than just external. "The forensic accountant we hired found something," Oliver said from his desk behind her. His voice was tight, laced with a carefully controlled anger. Sophia turned to face him. Even at this early hour of the morning, Oliver was impeccably dressed in a tailored suit that perfectly emphasized his broad shoulders and the dangerous grace with which he moved. Over the past few weeks, she had grown to understand him, learning to read his moods in the slightest shifts of his expression. the subtle tension in his jaw. And right now, he looked utterly murderous. "What did he find?" she asked, her own voice steady. Oliver slid a thick manila folder across the polished surface of his mahogany desk. The sound was stark in the quiet room. "Matteo did not just steal from you, Sophia. He has been running this exact same con for years. You are the fifth woman he has done this to." Sophia's hands shook as she reached for the folder and opened it. Inside were photographs, legal documents, and pages of bank records. 5 different women stared back at her from the photos. All of them were beautiful, all of them were clearly wealthy, and all of them had been completely and utterly destroyed by the very same man she had planned to marry. "Elena Rodriguez, 2019, Oliver began, his voice growing harder and colder with each name he recited. She lost her family's entire restaurant chain, a legacy built over 3 generations. Maria Santos, 2020. He took her tech startup, a company she built from nothing. Carmen Delgado, 2021. He stole her real estate empire. He paused, letting the weight of the names hang in the air. They are all broke now, Sophia. They are living in shelters, or with reluctant relatives, trying desperately to rebuild their lives from absolute scratch. Sophia sank heavily into a leather chair, feeling overwhelmed by the scale of his cruelty. "How did he find us all?" she asked. "He specifically targets women who have inherited their wealth." Oliver's explanation was chillingly logical. Women with no demanding business partners to ask difficult questions, no complex corporate structures that would be difficult to navigate. He seeks out intelligent, trusting women who fall for his charm and his lies, and then he convinces them to sign the wrong papers. The raw pain of betrayal hit her all over again, a fresh, sharp wound. But this time, it was mixed with a powerful new emotion. It was fury, a pure, clean, and burning rage. "Where are they now?" she demanded. "The other women? They are scattered, hiding. They are too ashamed to come forward." Oliver moved from behind his desk to stand beside her chair, his presence a comforting anchor. "But that is not going to be you. You are going to be different, Sophia. You and I are going to make absolutely sure of that." Sophia looked up at him, and she saw something entirely new in the depths of his dark eyes. It was not just anger at Matteo anymore. It was a clear and profound admiration for her. "You have been watching me," she said softly, stating it as a fact, not a question. "Every single day," Oliver's voice dropped, becoming almost a whisper. "I have been watching you put yourself back together, piece by piece. I have watched you getting stronger with every passing hour." He knelt beside her chair, so their eyes were level. "I have been watching you transform your pain into pure power, and it has been absolutely incredible to witness." The very air between them shifted, crackling with an energy that had been building for days. It was an awareness, an undeniable pull that went beyond gratitude and protection. Oliver had given her safety, he had given her resources, and most importantly, he had given her his respect. But more than any of that, he had given her the space she needed to find herself again. And she discovered that she genuinely liked the woman she was becoming. "I want to meet them," Sophia said suddenly, her voice filled with a new and unwavering resolve. "The other women," she clarified. "I want to find them, and I want to help them." Oliver's eyebrows rose in surprise. "Sophia, that could be extremely dangerous. If Matteo finds out what you are doing—" "Let him find out," Sophia interrupted, standing to her feet. For the first time since that horrible day in the cathedral, she felt truly and completely powerful. "I am not hiding anymore, Oliver. I am done being a victim. Those women deserve justice, every single one of them, and I am going to be the one to help them get it." Oliver stared at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. And then he smiled. It was not one of the careful, protective smiles he had given her before. This one was real and warm, and it was filled with an immense sense of pride. "There she is," he said quietly, his voice full of admiration. "The woman who is going to bring Matteo Castellano to his knees." Sophia felt her cheeks grow warm under his intense gaze. "Will you help me?" she asked, her voice firm. "Sophia," Oliver said, stepping closer until only inches separated them, "I will do whatever it takes to see you get your revenge. And when this is all over—" He let the words hang in the air, a silent promise of a future she was finally ready to consider. Imagine a day when Matteo is locked away in a cold prison cell, paying for his crimes. A day when you have recovered every single thing he took from you. Oliver's voice was low, his hand hovering near her cheek before he drew it back, respecting her space. "When all of this is finally settled, I can only hope you will still want to be here with me." Sophia's heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic rhythm in the quiet room. She finally saw it, clear as day in the depths of his gaze. It was not just respect or admiration. It was something far deeper, something profound. It was a feeling that both terrified her and sent a thrilling current through her entire being. The name hit the air like a gunshot. Oliver. Suddenly, the heavy office door flew open with a violent crash. Marcus, the stern head of Oliver's security team, stormed into the room, his phone clamped tightly to his ear. He looked grim. "Boss, we have a serious situation developing. Matteo just surfaced at the Riverside warehouse on the south side. He isn't alone, he has a crew of 12 men with him, and he is asking questions about Sophia." The world seemed to tilt as Sophia's blood ran cold, turning to ice in her veins. The terrible thought echoed in her mind. "He has found me." "Not yet," Marcus corrected, his voice a low growl. "But he knows for certain that you are somewhere in this city. He is putting a price on your head, offering a bounty for any information leading to your location." Oliver's face transformed, his expression becoming dangerously serene, a calm that promised a storm. He asked a single question. "How much?" Marcus did not hesitate. $50,000. Oliver let out a short, sharp laugh, but it was completely empty of humor. It was a sound of pure contempt. 50,000. He truly has no idea what kind of power he is challenging. He shifted his focus to Sophia, his eyes burning with a fierce, protective fire that seemed to push back the fear. "Go and pack a bag now. I am sending you to the safe house upstate. You will remain there until we have dealt with this problem for good." "No." The word left Sophia's lips, clear and steady, the strength in her own voice catching her by surprise. "I am finished with running away. This is not some game you can win, Sophia. When a man like Matteo feels trapped, he becomes incredibly dangerous." Sophia held his intense gaze, refusing to look away. "So are you," she stated simply. "And so am I." I think it is long past time that we reminded him of that fact. Oliver just stared at her, a visible conflict playing out across his features, admiration warring with his instinct to protect her. At last, he gave a slow, deliberate nod of acceptance. "All right," he conceded, his voice firm. "But we are going to do this my way. We will do this together." A genuine smile finally broke through Sophia's resolve, a wave of relief and strength washing over her. For the first time in so many months, she felt truly, completely alive. Together. The word hung in the air, a promise and a pact. Inside the sprawling, abandoned warehouse, the air was thick with the smell of decay, rust, and the ghosts of forgotten ambitions. Sophia reached up and carefully adjusted the tiny earpiece nestled in her ear, then glanced down at her watch. The plan Oliver had devised was incredibly risky, a high-stakes gamble. But it was also undeniably brilliant. Their objective had grown. They were no longer just targeting Matteo. They were aiming to dismantle his entire criminal operation from the ground up. "Mic check." Oliver's voice suddenly crackled to life in her ear, a calm presence in the tense silence. He was positioned strategically on the roof above, armed with a high-powered sniper rifle. His purpose was not to kill, but to be her guardian angel, to guarantee her safety no matter what. "I can hear you perfectly," she whispered back, her fingers brushing against the miniature camera disguised as a pin on her jacket. Are you absolutely certain this is the right move? My certainty is not about the plan, it is about you, Oliver's voice returned, solid and unwavering. The raw confidence in his tone sent a flutter through her chest, steadying her nerves. Just remember the part you are playing. You are nothing more than his terrified former fiancé, desperate and looking for answers. You have to let him believe he has already won. Taking a final, deep breath to steel herself, Sophia stepped out from the shadows and walked into the vast, open space of the warehouse. There he was. Matteo stood waiting in the center of the cavernous room, looking every bit the polished, handsome man she had once tragically fallen in love with. The charming smile was perfectly in place. His clothes were impeccably tailored and worth a fortune, and not a single dark hair was out of place. It was a startling reminder of how easily evil could hide itself behind such a beautiful and convincing mask. My, Matteo said, his voice echoing slightly as he spread his arms in a grand, welcoming gesture. You look absolutely incredible. It seems that heartbreak really suits you. Sophia fought the urge to recoil, forcing her expression to remain neutral at the sound of the pet name that used to make her heart melt. Where is my money, Matteo? She kept her voice even and cold. Your money? He chuckled, a condescending sound, and began to slowly circle her as if she were his prey. Querida, my dear, there is no such thing as your money any longer. There is only my money, which I rightfully earned by being significantly smarter and more ruthless than you. You stole my entire inheritance. You took my grandmother's house. You stole everything my family worked for generations to build. I liberated it, Matteo corrected her smoothly, his smile never faltering. I freed it from the hands of a naive little girl who would have foolishly wasted it all on useless charities and pointless good causes. You should be thanking me. At least I am putting it all to proper use. Sophia's hands, hidden at her sides, curled into tight, shaking fists. Proper use? What could you possibly consider a proper use? Expanding my various business enterprises, of course. Buying valuable information about my competitors. Matteo's eyes suddenly gleamed with a cruel light. Using it for things like finding out that the famously reclusive Sofia Martinez has been living under the protection of the one and only Oliver Torino. Did you honestly believe for a second that I would not discover your little secret? The chill returned to Sophia's blood, but she fought to keep her face an unreadable mask. I have absolutely no idea what you are talking about. Oh, please, Matteo scoffed, pulling his expensive phone from his pocket. He turned the screen toward her, displaying a series of crystal-clear photographs. There was Sophia, leaving Oliver's heavily guarded compound. There was another of Oliver, gently helping her into his armored car. A third showed the two of them in deep conversation in his private garden. You have certainly been keeping yourself busy, have you not? Moving on from our great and epic love so very quickly. There was never any love, Sophia said, her voice barely a whisper, but filled with conviction. There were only your lies. True, Matteo admitted with a complete and utter lack of shame, but they were very profitable lies, you have to admit. And now, thanks to your convenient new friendship, I have gained access to something far more valuable than your family's little fortune. A crackle in Sophia's earpiece. It was Oliver, his voice a deadly calm whisper. He is not talking about money anymore, Sophia. This is about something else entirely. This is about territory, Matteo continued, completely unaware of the silent conversation happening right above his head. For years, Torino has been a ghost, completely untouchable. But even ghosts have a weakness, and you, mi amore, my love, you are his. A wave of nausea washed over Sophia. It was happening all over again. You are using me again. Of course I am, Matteo shrugged as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. It is what I do best. But you should not worry. This time I will give you a front row seat to watch him fall before I eliminate both of you. That was it. That was the signal. Sophia's hand moved to her jacket, and she tapped her earpiece twice. It was the prearranged code for immediate extraction. In an instant, the entire warehouse erupted into controlled chaos. Oliver's highly trained men began rappelling down from the skylights. At the same moment, other teams burst through the main doors, moving with precision and speed. Mateo's guards instinctively reached for their weapons, but it was too late. They were hopelessly outnumbered, at least 3-1. Sophia, get down! Oliver's command cut sharply through the cacophony of shouts and movement. Without a second thought, Sophia dropped to the ground as gunfire suddenly erupted all around her. She scrambled and rolled behind a thick concrete pillar, her heart pounding against her ribs like a drum. Through the gaps, she watched as Oliver's team systematically and efficiently dismantled Mateo's entire security detail. When the last shot echoed and faded into silence, Oliver was suddenly right there beside her. He was pulling her gently to her feet, his hands moving over her arms and shoulders, checking for any injuries with a focused tenderness. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice low and concerned. "No, I am fine," she managed to say, her voice shaking slightly. Sophia quickly scanned the warehouse. Mateo's men were all subdued, either unconscious or with their hands up in surrender. But Mateo himself was nowhere to be seen. "Where is he?" Oliver's jaw clenched tightly. He had a prepared escape route, a bolt hole, but it does not matter. We got exactly what we came for. Just then, Marcus approached them, holding a sleek laptop and a stack of several hard drives. "We have it all, boss. Financial records, secret client lists, property deeds, offshore account numbers, everything." Sophia stared at the devices, at the cold, hard evidence that would finally be the instrument of Mateo's downfall. "All of it is here," Oliver confirmed, his eyes meeting hers, "including irrefutable proof of his crimes against you and against the 4 other women he targeted before you. He is finished, Sophia. His entire network has been shattered. All of his money is being frozen as we speak, and every single law enforcement agency across 3 states is now actively hunting for him." Logically, Sophia knew she should feel a sense of triumph. She should be celebrating this hard-won vindication. Instead, a profound and hollow emptiness settled deep within her. "Why do I not feel any better?" Oliver gently cupped her face in his hands, his touch grounding and infinitely gentle in the cold warehouse. "Because revenge does not have the power to heal the wound, Sophia. All it does is stop the bleeding. It just closes it. The real, true healing begins now, in the time that comes after. And how am I supposed to do that? By building something new from the ashes, something real and lasting." Oliver's thumb traced the line of her cheekbone, a simple gesture filled with profound meaning. "You build something that is worth more than any fortune Mateo could ever steal from anyone." Sophia looked deep into his steady eyes, and, for the first time, she saw her future clearly. It was not the false future she had once planned with Mateo, a life that was built on a foundation of lies and empty promises. This was a real future, beside a man who had repeatedly proven he would protect her, who would support her, and who would respect her incredible strength. "Oliver, I know," he said softly, cutting her off with a gentle understanding. "I know you are not ready yet. I know you need time to process everything. I just need you to know that whenever you are ready, I will be right here waiting." Without another word, Sophia rose up on her tiptoes and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was soft, tentative, yet it was filled with unspoken promises and infinite possibility. "I am ready now," she whispered against his lips. A slow, genuine smile spread across Oliver's face, the first true smile she had ever seen from him. He leaned in and kissed her back, a kiss of acceptance and beginning. All around them, his men worked with quiet efficiency, cleaning up the aftermath of their successful operation. But for Sophia, the only thing in the entire world that mattered was the man who was holding her, as if she were the most precious thing he had ever known, as if she were finally home, as if she were loved. 6 months later, Sophia walked through the glass doors of the prestigious law offices of Channon and Associates. Oliver was by her side, a quiet pillar of support, and a newfound confidence radiated from her every step. Seated around a long, polished conference table were the other four women who had been victims of Mateo's elaborate schemes. Their faces were a complex mixture of cautious hope and lingering disbelief. "Ladies," Sophia said, her voice clear and strong as she took her rightful place at the head of the table, "today is the day we get our lives back." Elena Rodriguez, a talented restaurant owner whose business had been destroyed, leaned forward eagerly. "You mean all of it? Is it really possible?" "Every single penny," their lawyer, James Chen, confirmed with a satisfied smile. "Mr. Castellano's assets have been officially seized, his international accounts have been frozen solid, and all of his properties have been liquidated by the authorities. The court has issued a final order for full and complete restitution to be paid to all of his victims." Sophia watched as one by one, the other women began to cry. These were not tears of sadness, but tears of overwhelming relief, of final vindication, of a hope that had been lost and was now miraculously restored. She felt Oliver's hand find hers under the table, giving it a reassuring squeeze. "But that is not all," Sophia announced, her voice gaining strength. "With the money that we are recovering today, I am proposing that we start something entirely new. I want to create a foundation dedicated to helping other women who have been the victims of sophisticated financial fraud. We can offer legal aid, trauma counseling, and even business loans to help them rebuild their lives." Maria Santos, a brilliant tech entrepreneur who had lost her startup, wiped the tears from her eyes. "So you want to turn all of our pain into a new purpose?" "Exactly," Sophia affirmed with a determined smile. "We can never change what Mateo did to us, but we can work to make sure that it does not happen to anyone else ever again." The women looked at each other around the table, a silent communication passing between them. Then, one by one, they began to nod in agreement. Elena was the first one to speak up. "I am in. My restaurants are gone, but I know how to rebuild from nothing. And this time, I will know exactly what red flags to watch for. I can handle the technology side of things," Maria added, her voice filled with new energy. "I can build a secure database, an early warning system for women to check the backgrounds of potential partners and investors." Carmen Delgado, who had been a real estate mogul, sat forward, her expression resolute. "I will donate properties to be used as safe houses. We can create places where women can go when they are trying to escape from financial abuse and need a safe place to land." Tears pricked at the corners of Sophia's eyes as she listened. These incredible women were not just surviving their ordeal. They were taking their trauma and transforming it into a shield, into a weapon for good, just as she had learned to do. "There is something else," she said, her gaze shifting for a moment to Oliver. "Mr. Torino has generously agreed to be our primary financial backer. This is not a loan that we will have to repay. It is a gift, with absolutely no strings attached." The women all turned to stare at Oliver, who had remained a silent, supportive presence throughout the entire meeting. They all knew his name, what his family represented in the city, so the fact that he was willing to put his own money and reputation behind their foundation spoke volumes about his character, and even more about his deep feelings for Sophia. "Why would you do this?" Elena asked, her question direct and blunt. Oliver's eyes found Sophia's across the table, his gaze warm and unwavering. "Because Sophia asked me to," he answered simply. "And because some fights are simply worth having." After the meeting concluded, Sophia and Oliver walked together through Central Park, the crisp autumn leaves dancing in the air around them. Sophia felt lighter than she had in years, as if the final crushing weight of Mateo's betrayal had at long last been lifted from her shoulders for good. "Thank you," she said sincerely, linking her arm through Oliver's as they walked. "Thank you for absolutely everything." "Thank you for letting me be a part of it," Oliver replied, his voice soft. "Watching you transform yourself over these past few months has been nothing short of incredible, Sophia. You are incredible." Sophia stopped walking then and turned to face him directly, the city sounds fading into the background. For 180 days, Oliver had demonstrated a profound level of patience that felt like a shield around her. He had been her unwavering support, a steady presence who was meticulously careful never to push her, never to rush the slow, painful process of her healing. In every single way that truly mattered, in all the quiet moments that defined a person's character, he had proven himself to be a man of his word. "I love you," she finally said, the three words feeling both simple and monumental. Oliver's entire body went still, his expression unreadable for a heartbeat. "So," she continued, her voice gaining strength, "I am fully aware that you have been waiting for me to say that first, to be absolutely certain of my feelings." Sophia reached up, cupping his strong jaw in her hands, her touch gentle but firm. "I am absolutely sure, Oliver. I love the fundamental strength that defines you, the unwavering honor you live by, your incredible patience. I love the profound sense of safety that surrounds me whenever you are near. And I am so grateful for how you have helped me grow into someone I can finally be proud to be." In that moment, Oliver kissed her, and it was nothing like she had ever experienced. It was a kiss that was deep and intensely passionate, a raw and beautiful outpouring of 6 long months of restrained emotion, hope, and longing. "I love you too," he whispered, his words a warm breath against her lips, his voice thick with a feeling he had not anticipated. "I love you more than I ever imagined it was possible to love someone." They just held each other there, standing in the very center of the park as the autumn leaves fell around them like colorful confetti, surrounded by the unspoken promise of a shared future, one that would be built on a foundation of unshakable truth instead of destructive lies. "So, what happens to us now?" Sophia asked, her voice soft with wonder and a touch of uncertainty. A slow, genuine smile spread across Oliver's face as he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, dark velvet box. "Now," he said, his eyes sparkling with intent, "I finally get to ask you the question that I have been wanting to ask you for so many long months." Sophia felt her heart literally stop inside her chest, every breath catching in her throat. Right there, in the middle of the public park, Oliver dropped gracefully to one knee. He opened the box, revealing a breathtakingly beautiful vintage ring, its central diamond catching the golden afternoon light and fracturing it into 1,000 points of fiery brilliance. "Sophia Martinez," he began, his voice impressively steady and clear, a stark contrast to the powerful emotion swimming in his dark eyes. "Will you agree to marry me?" He paused, letting the weight of the question settle between them. "Not for financial gain, not for some strategic business alliance, and not for any other reason under the sun, except for the simple truth that I love you completely. I want to spend the rest of my life proving that love to you, every single day, without fail." Sophia gazed down at this formidable, intensely powerful man who was now kneeling before her, offering his whole heart in the palm of his hands. In that instant, she felt her entire world, once shattered and chaotic, shift and lock into a state of perfect, serene alignment. It was a feeling of coming home. "Yes," she whispered at first, the word almost lost to the breeze. Then she found her voice and said it louder, with joyful certainty. "Yes, Oliver. 1,000 times, yes." As he gently slipped the exquisite ring onto her finger, Sophia had a profound realization. The devastating betrayal by Matteo had not, in the end, destroyed her life as she had once feared. Instead, it had been the painful, necessary catalyst that led her to her real life, to a real and honest love, and to the one man who she knew would never break her heart because he truly understood its immense value. The ring was a perfect fit. And so, it turned out, were they. 1 year to the day later, Sophia found herself standing before the altar of another grand cathedral, but this time, every single detail, every feeling, was profoundly different. This time, the man who waited for her at the far end of the long aisle was someone who had proven his love not with empty words and grand promises, but through countless consistent and selfless actions. He was someone who celebrated and supported her strength instead of trying to exploit her trust for his own gain. Oliver stood there waiting, looking impossibly handsome in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, his dark, intense eyes completely fixed on her. The expression on his face was a powerful mixture of awe and profound devotion that made her heart race with joyous anticipation. Standing just behind him, Marcus and the rest of Oliver's formidable crew looked surprisingly respectable and dapper, all cleaned up in their formal wear. Meanwhile, sitting in the front pews, Elena, Maria, Carmen, and dozens of other women from the foundation they had built together all smiled at her through their happy, emotional tears. Sophia's wedding dress this time was a study in elegant simplicity, crafted from flowing silk instead of the elaborate, heavy lace she had worn before. She wore her grandmother's simple pearls around her neck instead of a collection of cold, borrowed diamonds. In this dress, surrounded by these people, she felt completely like herself, not like an actress playing a role in someone else's production. "You look absolutely beautiful," whispered Elena, the woman who had become like a mother to her and was now giving her away. "You look like a woman who knows exactly what she wants from life and is not afraid to claim it." "I do know," Sophia confirmed, her gaze never once leaving Oliver's warm and steady eyes. "I know exactly what and who I want." The ceremony itself was perfect because of its heartfelt simplicity. There were no elaborate, showy productions, no carefully staged performances for distant relatives and business associates. It was just two people who had found each other during the worst of circumstances, who had taken the ashes of a terrible betrayal and built something beautiful, strong, and true. The priest's voice echoed in the grand hall, asking if any person present knew a reason why this union should not proceed. For a terrifying second, Sophia's breath caught in her throat. An old, familiar panic coiled in her stomach, a ghost from a nightmare she thought she had escaped. She could almost see Matteo bursting through the doors, his voice a weapon meant to shatter this perfect day, just as he had shattered her first wedding. But then Oliver shifted beside her, a warm and solid presence. He must have felt the tremor that ran through her, because his large hand gently found hers, his fingers lacing through her own. He leaned in, his words a secret shield meant only for her. "Remember where he is, Sophia. He is in a federal prison." The judge gave him 25 years to life. His crimes were numerous, including massive fraud, complex racketeering, and at least 12 other serious charges that painted a picture of a man without a conscience. "He is gone, Sophia. He is never going to be able to hurt you again." A genuine smile finally broke through the clouds of her memory, and the very last shadow of her painful past seemed to evaporate in the light of the church. "I know," she breathed, a weight lifting from her soul. "It is just that this moment, this happiness, it feels too wonderful to be real." "This is not too good to be true," Oliver whispered back, his voice thick with emotion. "This is precisely, exactly, what you have always deserved." When the priest pronounced them husband and wife, their kiss was a promise sealed. For the first time in her life, Sophia felt she had truly, finally come home. Their wedding reception was held in Oliver's magnificent mansion, which was now their mansion, completely transformed for the occasion, with thousands of fragrant white flowers and countless twinkling lights that looked like captured stars. As they took to the floor for their first dance as a married couple, Sophia marveled at how profoundly different this entire experience felt from the lavish wedding she had meticulously planned with Matteo. "Do you have any regrets?" Oliver asked, his voice a low rumble against her ear as he spun her gracefully across the polished dance floor. "Only a single one," Sophia replied, smiling up at him with all the love she felt in her heart. "I regret that I did not have the chance to meet you first." Oliver let out a laugh, a sound that was rich and warm and full of genuine happiness. "If you had met me first," he mused, You might not have been able to appreciate what we have now. Sometimes we have to navigate through the deepest darkness to truly recognize and value the light. Sophia thought about his words as they continued to dance, held close in each other's arms. He was absolutely right. The woman who had been engaged to Matteo was a different person. She had been naive, far too trusting, and perfectly willing to overlook a mountain of red flags for the sake of what she had mistaken for love. The woman who was dancing with Oliver now was fundamentally stronger, infinitely wiser, and fiercely independent. This woman had taken her trauma and channeled it into building a powerful foundation that had already helped over 200 other women escape similar fates. She had successfully turned her agonizing trauma into a life's purpose, and her deep pain into an incredible source of power. "I am so in love with the woman you have become," Oliver said, his timing so perfect it was as if he could read her thoughts. "You are strong, fierce, and deeply compassionate. You are not just my wife, Sophia. You are my partner in every sense of the word. You are my equal, and you are my greatest inspiration." "And you," she replied, her voice filled with emotion, "are my safe harbor in any storm. You are my living proof that truly good men do exist in this world." As the magical night wore on, Sophia found herself looking around at all of their assembled guests. She saw former victims who had transformed into passionate advocates for others. She saw Oliver's crew of tough, intimidating men who had somehow become her protective, loyal older brothers. She saw the brilliant lawyer who had fought for her and become a trusted friend. This gathering was so much more than just a wedding. It was a powerful celebration of survival, a testament to transformation, and a beautiful declaration of love, triumphing over a bitter betrayal. Sometime near midnight, Oliver gently pulled her aside, leading her out onto the quiet terrace that overlooked the sprawling garden, where she had first begun the long process of healing her heart. "I have something else for you," he said softly, producing a thick manila envelope from inside his jacket. Sophia carefully opened it and found a legal deed inside. It was not for a house or another piece of property, but for an entire building in the heart of downtown Manhattan. "It is the Foundation's new headquarters," Oliver explained, his eyes glowing with pride in her. "It has 5 full floors, a state-of-the-art security system, enough office space for 30 staff members, and a dedicated client center that I had designed specifically for women who need a safe place to go when they have nowhere else to turn." Sophia stared down at the official papers, feeling completely overwhelmed by the sheer scale of his generosity and belief in her. "Oliver, this is entirely too much," she stammered. "It is not nearly enough," he replied firmly, his tone leaving no room for argument. "You have helped so many women reclaim and rebuild their lives, Sophia. You deserve to have a headquarters that is worthy of that incredibly important mission." Without another word, Sophia threw her arms around his neck, kissing him with all the boundless love and immense gratitude that filled her heart to bursting. "Thank you," she whispered against his skin, "for absolutely everything. For saving me when I was lost, for believing in me when I did not believe in myself, and for loving me so completely." "No, thank you," Oliver replied, holding her just as tightly. "Thank you for trusting me with your heart after everything that you had been through. I know that could not have been an easy thing to do." They simply held each other on the terrace for a long time, looking out together over the dazzling expanse of the city lights. Somewhere out there in that vast city, Matteo was spending his first of many, many years locked inside a cold prison cell, at long last facing the consequences for all of his cruel actions. And right here, held safely in the arms of a man who had proven that love could be built on a foundation of respect and unwavering honesty, Sophia felt like she was, without a doubt, the luckiest woman in the entire world. "So," he said, nuzzling her neck gently, "are you ready to finally start our happily ever after?" Sophia smiled, her mind filled with images of all the women they would help in the future, all the shattered lives they would rebuild together, and all the wonderful years of love and true partnership that were stretching out ahead of them. "I am more than ready," she said with absolute conviction. "Let us go change the world together." And holding hands, they walked back into the celebration and into their future. 5 years later, Sophia stood in the grand, sunlit lobby of the Martinez Torino Foundation. She was watching as their latest client, a bright young woman named Isabella, who had been cruelly scammed by a cryptocurrency romance fraudster, signed the final papers for her small business loan. "You are absolutely sure that you want to open a bakery?" Sophia asked kindly, as she reviewed Isabella's detailed and impressive business plan one last time. "I am completely sure," Isabella replied, her voice filled with a newfound confidence that was a universe away from the broken, defeated woman who had first walked through their doors 6 long months ago. "I will use my grandmother's old recipes in my own space to build my own success. That is something that no one can ever take away from me again." Sophia smiled warmly, vividly remembering saying very similar words to herself all those years ago. "No, they certainly cannot. Now go out there and build something truly beautiful for yourself." After Isabella left with a hopeful smile on her face, Sophia took a slow walk through the foundation's bustling offices. The walls were now covered with framed photographs of their countless success stories. Women who had transformed from victims into successful entrepreneurs, powerful advocates, and respected community leaders. Elena, for her part, had not only rebuilt her restaurant chain, but now also ran a popular culinary training program for women leaving abusive domestic situations. Maria, the tech genius, had created the world's most sophisticated and effective financial fraud detection application. Carmen had successfully developed an extensive network of safe housing that now spanned across 3 different states. "I see you are admiring your empire." Oliver's familiar voice made her turn around with a smile. He was standing in the doorway of her spacious office, looking as distinguished as ever in one of his perfectly tailored suits, but his eyes and his entire demeanor were somehow softer and warmer than when she had first met him all those years ago. Marriage, it seemed, had been very good to Oliver Torino. He had spent the past few years gradually transitioning his powerful family's business operations toward completely legitimate enterprises. He now used his vast resources and extensive connections primarily to support their foundation and a variety of other important charitable causes. "Our empire," Sophia corrected him gently, walking over to slip into his waiting arms. "I could not have accomplished any of this without you by my side." "Of course you could have," Oliver said, placing a tender kiss on her forehead. "You are the strongest and most resilient woman I have ever known, Sophia Torino. You would have found a way to succeed, no matter what." Sophia smiled at the comforting sound of her married name. While she had kept Martinez for her professional life, she had gladly taken Torino as her personal name, a symbol of how they had bound their lives together in every single way that truly mattered. "Are you ready to go home?" Oliver asked her. Home was now the beautifully renovated mansion, which they had transformed into a unique kind of sanctuary. It was part private residence and part welcoming retreat center for the many women they helped through their work. That evening, they were hosting an intimate dinner for the foundation's board members and all of their families. As they drove together through the familiar streets of Manhattan, Sophia found herself reflecting on the incredible and unexpected journey that had brought them to this very moment. The naive, heartbroken woman who had been left standing alone at the altar now seemed like a complete stranger from a different lifetime. That woman had been utterly broken by betrayal. This woman, the one sitting beside her husband now, had used that breaking to build something infinitely stronger, something truly beautiful, and something deeply meaningful. "What are you thinking about right now?" Oliver asked, his voice soft as he noticed her contemplative and distant expression. "I was thinking about Matteo," Sophia answered with complete honesty. She never hid anything from him anymore. Oliver's hands tightened almost imperceptibly on the leather of the steering wheel. Even after 5 full years and absolutely zero contact, He still felt that fierce, protective instinct rise up whenever she so much as mentioned her ex-fiancé's name. I heard he got out on parole last month. Years later, while driving home one evening, Sophia turned to her husband and spoke quietly into the comfortable silence. Did you hear the news about him? Oliver smoothly guided the car to the side of the road and put it in park. He turned his body completely to face her, his expression a mask of careful neutrality that she knew was for her benefit. I knew he was being released. Marcus has been keeping a close watch on the entire situation from the beginning. There are strict conditions. He is legally required to maintain a distance of at least 500 meters from you at all times. It is a condition of his parole. Sophia nodded slowly, processing the information. She had anticipated that Oliver would already have measures in place. I want you to know something, Oliver. I am not afraid of him any longer. I am aware of that, Oliver said, his voice soft with pride. But my duty to protect you does not change. That is what I am here for. It is what husbands are supposed to do. She graced him with a small, knowing smile. Good husbands do that. Oliver's lips curved in response as he started the engine and pulled back onto the street. They are the only kind of husband worth having. That evening, their home was filled with life and laughter. Sophia watched their dinner guests, a vibrant group of successful women who had escaped their own dark pasts, and reformed men who now dedicated their lives to good. She saw children playing, their faces bright with innocence, growing up in homes founded on truth, not on the poison of manipulation. A profound feeling of contentment washed over her. This was more than just her own personal happiness. It was the certain knowledge that she and Oliver had taken the wreckage of their pasts and used their story to help build better, safer endings for so many other people. Much later that night, as they prepared for bed in their master suite, the doors opened to the garden where her healing had first started. Oliver wrapped his arms around her from behind. I have something to confess, he murmured against her hair. Oh, really? Sophia raised an inquisitive eyebrow in the mirror, a playful smile on her lips. We have been married for 5 years now, and you are only just now revealing your secrets to me. His hold on her tightened slightly. I never told you the complete reason why I stopped to help you that terrible day at the cathedral. Sophia turned in his arms to face him, her full attention on his serious expression. You told me that no one deserved to suffer what Matteo did to me. And that was absolutely true, Oliver confirmed, his gaze unwavering. But it was not the entire truth. Then what was? She asked softly. Oliver gently lifted his hands to frame her face, his thumbs stroking her cheeks, his eyes filled with a deep tenderness. I stopped because when I saw you, I thought you were the most breathtakingly beautiful woman I had ever seen in my entire life. You were magnificent, even while covered in tears and righteous rage. But the reason I stayed, the reason I could not walk away, was because of what you did in the next moment. What was it that I did? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. You stood up, Oliver said, his voice filled with the same awe he must have felt that day. You had been utterly devastated, completely betrayed by the man you trusted, and left with absolutely nothing. And yet you still found the strength to get up and walk out of that church with your head held high. In that single instant, I knew you were not like anyone else. You were extraordinary. I knew I had to know you. I knew, he paused, a gentle smile transforming his face. I knew right then that I was going to fall completely in love with you. Sophia felt the sting of tears in her eyes, her heart swelling with an emotion so powerful it almost hurt. So it was love at first sight? He chuckled softly, shaking his head. It was love at the first sight of your incredible strength. Everything that came after, every day I have known you, simply confirmed what my heart understood in that first defining moment. Sophia rose on her toes and kissed him, trying to pour 5 years of profound love, of safety, and of boundless gratitude into that single touch. When they finally parted, She rested her forehead against his. "It is a strange thing to say, but I am glad Matteo left me at the altar," she whispered. "I am completely serious. If he had not done that terrible thing, I would have married him. I would have spent the rest of my life chained to a person who did not deserve one moment of my time, a man who could never see my true worth. More importantly, I would never have found you. I never would have helped build our foundation, and I never would have become the strong woman I am today." She smiled, even as tears of joy traced paths down her cheeks. "His ultimate betrayal was actually the first step toward my real life, the path that led me directly to you." Oliver held her close, a silent promise of unwavering support. Sophia knew with absolute certainty that no matter what storms the future might hold, they would navigate them together, side by side. What they had forged was not just a marriage, but something real and enduring. It was a legacy worth more than all of Matteo's ill-gotten fortunes combined. Theirs was a love built upon a solid foundation of mutual respect, unshakable trust, and a powerful shared purpose to make the world better. And a love like that, she knew, was truly priceless. The tale of Sophia and Oliver has now reached its beautiful, hopeful conclusion. Their journey is a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit. If you were moved by Sophia and Oliver's journey from betrayal to triumph, please consider showing your support by leaving a like. We also invite you to share this story with someone in your life who believes that true love can indeed conquer all obstacles. We have many more inspiring stories of resilience and hope coming very soon. Until we meet again, always keep believing in the possibility of your own happy ending.